What's going on, guys? I appreciate you for checking out the video. So I got this one right here for you guys, and we're gonna speak on how you do what you do. And this is more impactful to your life than you think. Just the simplest of things when it comes down to just studying. You know, if you're someone who's in college right now, if you're someone who's just working, just, you know, one of these jobs that we see out here, and, you know, you see the different categories that you can hop into. And you're going to notice, especially depending on who you are, you know, how you associate and communicate, and just the way you live your life, you're going to see how impactful this is to just many areas in your life that don't even have to do with, you know, what job you're working at that moment, right? And that's just an example with a job. So with this, there's a reason that I'm making this video, all right? If you're someone who's been keeping up to date with my channel, by the way, thank you, all right? And if you're someone who's new, salute, thank you for checking it out, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, you know, you can see I'm a little all over the place, all right? And there's some things that we got going on outside from this, and a lot of you already know what's up. We ain't got to explain ourselves, okay? So one thing here is that, hey, we lack consistency sometimes, all right? I can admit my flaws, and consistency, that's one of them, all right? Now, what I'm going to do is use my overnight grocery manager career as an example. Now, I've got many videos that break down just, you know, my career and just the many things I put up with in that. But in this video, you know, one thing we don't like to do here is speak on things that's already been spoken on, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stay structured, and we're gonna stay, you know, in this parameter. That way we're not all over the place, okay? But it would be much easier for you to understand the space someone can come from to make a video like this. Then please feel free to check out those other videos that go much more into depth, you know, over a career like this anyway. All right? So, one thing I lacked is consistency in coming in at a specific time that people can expect. And y'all already know that time and, you know, being on time and being disciplined is one of the major factors in keeping a job and keeping you know, a good communication with your coworkers. Why? Well, because you guys are all on the same team, should be acting like you're all on the same team, doing the same thing. Now, there's a reason why you have to answer questions like race and gender and all these things before you apply for a job, and then to, you know, when it comes down to your capabilities, you know, your accomplishments and your experience with different things like this, then, you know, it's going to be based upon, you know, those who pick if you're the right fit for the position, okay? But if you're someone who can come from where I'm coming from, where you are just someone who came from a different background, you know, and that doesn't really have to be the reasoning behind this video. You have a different way, and it could be anything. It could be a root, it could be just the way you grew up, it could be the way you grew up, how you grew up, you know, and that's gonna really, you're gonna see how your awareness is what's gonna change how you do what you're doing it compared to everyone else. If you're someone who's kind of differentiating, okay? So if you're someone who's kind of, let me go ahead and give you guys the example so we don't get caught off here, all right? And not make this too broad. Let's get real specific now. Now, I'd come in late. I'm the manager, right? Sometimes I'd come in earlier than the crew, okay? And that's the best bet. Why? Because, well, you get to set it up for everyone. Okay, there's no more extracurricular stuff in between that they need to do based upon you being in the position where you should be aware enough to see the parameter and what's going to happen, you know, weathering the statistics of, you know, what of all the what do you call it, responsibilities that they'll have to do during that night, on what different aisles you're giving them, and how long it's going to take them, and, you know, the procedures that you know, the discipline procedures, if, you know, if someone isn't making their case count or whatever, right? Then again, y'all already know how things go, and things ain't always perfect. And when it comes down to things like unintentional deception. Now, what is unintentional deception? Now, this is coming from the view of the overnight grocery manager being seen as the one who's being unintentionally deceptive. Why? Because there are some nights when he's coming in late. Now, why is he coming in late? this all comes down to things that's much more bigger picture than just an overnight grocery manager career. That is that's something that's going on in this person's life. Yet this person has so much other things that even have greater awarenesses than this position that can be used as a good example that this person is going through and doing, along with living life and doing the other things that other normal people do as well to add to it, right? This is this person's life playing out differently, and he's coming in with a different awareness than everyone else who may perhaps be doing the same thing in these jobs that they've structured based upon the time frames that you need to be here and the amount of energy you need to do this. So that all comes down to sleep and things like that too. Unintentional deception is energy awareness shift. So this is where we get into things like mood swings, and when people make decisions based off feelings and perhaps comparing themselves to others. And this is when conflict and controversy starts. And then again, this is when the manager is the one who's got to be in the space to put his foot down with authority. And then this is when we have situations with tiers with other managers, and we've spoken on this previously before, where of course there are managers who break the rules. Of course there are managers who go against guidelines. And you the employee, are probably thinking, well, who's the one who monitored? Well, you should know. So remember, it's your choice to be an employee or a manager. So unintentional deception comes off as you have an agenda, because you're not choosing to even tell these people why is it that you even came in late. That's your business anyway, and you're the one who's in charge. So the reason we're able to break down such a thing as the art of unintentional deception is because, remember, we're just using this career as an example. But this is much bigger than just an example. This can apply to anything, right? And this is where we get things like individuals, even in the first place, becoming experimented on. Such words as surveillance. Why would you surveillance some and this is just an examples. Psychology, behavioral studies, right? Because you're someone who brought something new. You brought a new signature. You have your own you're being given for your own credit signature, because you're whether they want to give you credit or not. Because remember, a lot of people aren't seeing things the way you're seeing it too. But you're the one who has the awareness to even break something like this down, or to even want to at least, right? So you're someone who perhaps altered rules at one point, but you completed the task so much better, though, to the point where it was obvious on paper. This is where we get into the art of deception, and where it comes down to how you do what you do and why you're doing it. So, this person was not purposely coming in late. And then this is when we get into using things like medication tools. That's what I call it, medication tools. All the way down to, if you want to get specific and talk about individuals who, in states where marijuana is prescribed, and why this individual is using it and what it does to them to impact the way they do whatever it is they're doing. That's all on you. All that stuff is broad. But let's get simple and say that you're someone who's just drinking like a Red Bull or something, right? Or, you're taking like a 5-hour energy. It could be a situation where you're doing this because you came in late. And like I said before, this is when it all comes down into things like psychology. So what is psychology? The study of behavior, physical features, capabilities, social skills, understanding patterns, mental discipline, human activity. Okay? And breaking all that down. You know the way your body works. So you could come in, let's say the shift starts at 10 for the employees, you're the manager. You come in at 9:30. You don't need a Red Bull. You don't need 5-hour energy. You don't need a coffee to get things going. Why? Because you came in early, like it should be on the structure, right? And you set it up for the employees to come in for it to be a good night where there's no altercations. Now, you being just aware enough to know this, know that there's other stores and other branches, and you're able to have the awareness to compare yourself to that. So you can already see where you stand and how you're on top of those others doing the same thing as you, right? So on nights where you come in late and you're unintentionally coming in late, the reason you're coming in late has nothing to do with the job. But remember, The employees under you are programmed to have that mind where all they think about is a job, and they're not actually creating other awarenesses outside of that job to make them more open-minded to see why someone would even be sporadic like this in the first place, despite it all comes down to the discipline of the manager anyway. But based upon this manager being that good at his position, him coming in late is not intentional. He's probably out, he probably went on a date, he probably had something else he was doing, he probably had a bigger priority. But this person knows he's good at his job, and that when he drinks that Red Bull, based upon his blood type, and based upon just the way his you know, and I'm telling you what, when it you guys already know when it comes down to things like diet, you know, and the way your body moves, and you know, fasting and drinking tons of water and stuff, that is a, come on, you know, that's a game changer. And depending on the type of what background or bloodline you came from, oh my goodness, a Red Bull, you'll get the job done in 3 hours or less. So now, based upon the way you're doing this job, mad hustling, got mad Red Bull on deck, you know what I'm saying? Now that you're going all, you know, you're going straight mode, you know, you're going straight beast mode, you know what I'm saying? Straight Nate Diaz beast mode, you know what I'm saying? These people think it's something completely different than the job, and that you have, oh no, they think that it's an agenda towards the job, and that you're trying to do something, but it's not that. But then again, this all comes down to things like communication and mastering communication skills. You guys see it all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect manager. Manager is a broad word, but boy oh boy, it is a great position to use as an example. And when it comes down to things like discipline of a manager, it all comes down to that manager did something that he should not have done, or the decision is being based off feelings. So this is why we'd get into someone who would be willing to drink Red Bulls, avoid controversy communication with employees who do have a problem with the manager, even if it's something petty. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is the overnight grocery manager, and there are tiers. There's managers above this tier. But if this grocery manager is that good enough, and he is that good enough to where the job got done anyway, and he came in 3 hours late, well then this is when we get into decisions being based off feelings and the art of unintentional deception. Where this person is so aware enough to know that he could be deceptive, but he's not that type of person, and he also knows how he could come across as deceptive when he's not trying to be deceptive to other co-workers who are, you know, coming in and they have their mind fixated on the job. How you do what you do. This is going to dictate, you know, bringing something new. This is going to dictate things where we got into things like organized mobbing, how we got into people being experimented on, behavioral studies. And then this is why agencies involved in the first place to come up with why someone would think like this, or how they would even be in a position to think like this. You know what I'm saying? Departments, agencies will then get involved with even psychiatric treatment places with data collecting. So let's go ahead and summarize this up. Being the reliable situation. This is what we'll summarize it as. Okay? We're going to go ahead and call this video The Art of Unintentional Deception. All right? How you do what you do. Being the reliable situation, even when what you're doing is seen as rebellious. Because on paper, it's shown that you knocked it out of the park. It's too obvious for them to say that you can't do this anymore, or this is a big deal that you're coming in late. Although, you know, if it's something that you can't be doing, then you'll be disciplined. But if you're that good at it to where it's saving money, because money is what's making the world go around, this is where we get into things like altered rules, but the task got completed way better. And therefore, if you're someone who knows how to, and we did later on, communicate better, because of personal reasons that didn't allow us to communicate better, so we had to take the physical route. We had to take the rebellious route. We had to take the route that was seen as unintentionally deceptive, but it was seen as deceptive, okay? So I know I rambled on for a minute and I was kind of all over the place, but hopefully you guys can see a space where someone's coming from this, where you'll avoid staged controversial dialogue. You will see that unintentional deception is because of energy and awareness shifts. This is why we get into different things like people who are in relationships, you know, and how that makes it where if you're someone who's single And let's say you're not interested in being in a relationship, then you're gonna come into the job different than someone who's been in a relationship, and that's really important to you. And you're in a space where that person makes you feel a certain way. It all comes down to mood and energy shift and how you communicate with people. And if you know how to talk in a really good way and communicate correctly, this is when we get into things like where, the deception, that shouldn't be a word that's even being used. There should be no reason anyone's being deceptive. So this is where we come into things like taking accountability, eccentric behavior, psychology, why things like this exist and why people do the things they do. But when you know how to communicate, even if it's a little sporadic, you know what I'm saying? I know it's all over the place, but at the end of the day, as long as we got what we needed to get out, how you do what you do, being the reliable situation, even when what you're doing is being seen as rebellious, okay? So the art of the unintentional deception. Have my little notepad here. So I appreciate you guys for checking out the vid. I just did this one on the whim. So it's just something I wanted to talk about. But let me know what you thought about it.